Good day, everyone. It's good to be with you. It's good, especially on a Sunday, when on this Sunday we hear about Jesus coming to us. Jesus comes to the disciples, and Jesus walks with them. At first, they did not recognize him. They did not know who it was. His voice did not even penetrate them. But for the disciples, and for us sometimes, we miss Jesus. He's right here walking beside us, but we can miss him. But when the disciples walked with him and invited him to stay for dinner, it was when Jesus broke the bread that the disciples recognized him. At the moment of sharing the food and being at the table, the disciples knew that this was indeed their Lord. In their darkness, in their questions, in their confusion, they did not recognize him right away. But at the table, Jesus' closeness to them became very clear. Jesus was not only bread and sharing bread, Jesus was the living bread. He was the living word, and they embraced him. Sometimes for us, we can have the experience of knowing that the importance of Jesus in the Eucharist is how we are confirmed in our faith and belief that he comes to us and wants to be with us. But we miss him when we do not gather for the Eucharist. And in our lives now, we've all had the experience of wondering, when will we be together again? When can we come to church and assemble and be at the table so that we can recognize Jesus in the breaking of the bread? We have had Mass virtually, we've worshiped and prayed together virtually, but it's not exactly the same as being together, being physically present. One way we can join ourselves with Jesus these days is in a spiritual communion, by recognizing that although we can't receive Jesus physically and sacramentally, we can receive him by opening our hearts to him, by accepting his presence, by embracing him, and by welcoming him into all aspects of our lives. When we do that, when we embrace Jesus and welcome him into our lives, we're allowing ourselves to live in communion with him. On Sunday, May 3rd, we're going to have the chance to have spiritual communion with Jesus, but in a closer way. On the front steps of our church here at St. Rose, we're going to have the Blessed Sacrament exposed. We expose the Blessed Sacrament and put the host in a monstrance so that we can see him, so we recognize Jesus present in the bread of the Eucharist, and we will have Jesus in the Eucharist on the front steps of the church. We will have the opportunity for parishioners to drive by, to drive up to the front steps of the church, stop, and for 2 or 3 minutes say a prayer, worship and adore Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, and then drive away. No need to get out of the car or to interact with anyone, but just to come and for 2 or 3 minutes pray at the steps of the church before Jesus exposed in the Blessed Sacrament. This way our spiritual communion becomes not just virtual, not just something we see on TV, but we see Jesus right here, present before us in the sacrament of the Eucharist. It's a chance to know Jesus once again and to recognize his coming into our lives. As the disciples came to know Jesus in the breaking of the bread on the road to Emmaus, so let us come to know him again here as he offers himself to us and as we pray soon for the reopening of our church and the opportunity to receive Jesus in the Eucharist. In a couple of weeks also, we're going to recognize that Jesus still calls us to act and to be his ministers, servants of his message and his ministry. So in a couple of weeks, on the weekend of May 16th and 17th, there'll be the food van parked in front of the church, and the van will be there so that we can bring food to the Pierre Toussaint Soup Kitchen down in Newark, to the food pantry. We will do that again on the weekend of May 16th and 17th, because not only do we want to be united with Jesus in a spiritual way, we want to ministerially share the love of Jesus and his life with those around us, especially those most in need. Thank you for listening today. I look forward to seeing you very soon. God bless you and your families.